In just 90 days, I went from being a minimum wage employee cleaning toilets at a struggling tutoring center to becoming the center manager. And in under 4 months of taking over, I nearly doubled the monthly revenue of the business from $18,000 to $32,000 per month. That same business now does over $60,000 per month in revenue. And I know that might sound absolutely insane, but in this video, I want to share that story with you and take you through the exact steps I took in order to completely transform that business and my life. By the end of this, you'll have a clear roadmap to escape the daily grind of your tutoring business and scale to levels you never thought possible. The before: university dropout to struggling entrepreneur. I was born in New Delhi, India, and I grew up moving around the world. I lived in Mumbai, Dubai, Moscow, and then when I was 11 years old, my family settled in Houston, Texas. My father was an executive at an oil and gas company, but he always had an entrepreneurial mindset. He was fascinated by the education space, and he decided to invest in tutoring businesses. He opened up his first business in 2016, a mathnasium center, when I was 15 years old. I watched him build that from the ground up. I saw the challenges he faced. I saw the struggles. I saw what worked and what didn't. And honestly, it shaped how I think about the tutoring industry. Fast forward to December 2020. I was 17 years old and I was accepted into Indiana University, the number 8 business school in the United States. I was excited. I thought I had it all figured out. But during my first year, I already realized that I was living a lie. I wanted to build something. I wanted to be my own boss and I wanted to be successful. But I didn't want to wait until I was in my 30s or 40s to have millions in the bank. I wanted to achieve financial freedom while I was young and still in my 20s. In December 2022, after finishing my 3rd semester of university, I dropped out. I knew I had to pursue this vision I had of what I wanted my life to look like. I started a dropshipping business and I had some early success with it. It felt amazing, but by mid-2023, it started to fall apart. The business wasn't working anymore and I was stuck. I was staring at $15,000 in Amex debt and I had to figure something out. I moved back home to Houston to regroup and figure out my next move. At that time, my father was really pushing me back to go to university, but I had other plans. So I forced him to let me help out with one of his struggling mathnasium centers. The center was struggling. It wasn't performing well. Revenue was inconsistent. The operations were chaotic, and I saw the center as an opportunity of a fresh start. In August 2023, I started working at the center. I started at the very, very bottom. I was cleaning toilets. I was shadowing the tutors. I was learning the business from the ground up. But here's the thing. I wasn't only putting my head down and grinding. I was observing. I was watching how the business operated. I was seeing where the inefficiencies were. I was noticing what wasn't working. And I started to realize something. This business had potential, but it was being run like a tutoring center, not like a business. There was no real system for acquiring students. There was no real marketing strategy. There was no real sales process. My father had bought this business from someone who'd been running it for over a decade. And honestly, it had just been coasting along the whole time. Because of that, the revenue was inconsistent and the business was struggling. Now, I remember thinking, I know how to fix this. The turning point, the 90-day transformation. I'd been working in the business since August 2023, but in December, my father finally let me take full control. That's when I gave myself 120 days to completely turn this center around. The first thing I did was completely reposition the offer. We were competing on price with every other tutoring center in the area. We were charging low rates and we were still struggling to fill seats. So I came up with a plan. We were going to stop competing on price and do something that no old-fashioned tutoring business knew how to do. I created a high-ticket package. Before, we were selling 6 and 12-month programs at like $300 a month. I threw everything else out the window and built one offer, a 12-month program for $3,000. We weren't selling tutoring sessions anymore. We were selling transformation. And we said, we help students improve their math grade by a full letter grade in 90 days, or we work with you until they do. That's a completely different positioning. Now, we weren't competing on price anymore. We were competing on results and trust. At that time, I was handling all the lead follow-up and manually qualified those prospects. I set up systems and processes for everything: onboarding, session planning, progress tracking, parent communication. And the very first thing that I did was I set up a CRM to manage all of it and automate what could be automated. December 2023, when I took over as center manager, the center center was doing $18K per month. By the end of those 120 days, I added $14,000 in monthly revenue. We went from $18K to $32,000 per month. And it wasn't just because I was working harder, I was working smarter. It was because I built a system that actually worked. The after, a new reality. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that those numbers would not be possible had I not stepped in and made the changes that I did. The transformation was complete. But here's what's important about this. I didn't do this by cutting corners or some marketing gimmick. I did this by building real systems and real processes. That's the difference between a business and a job. But when I started thinking like an owner, everything changed. I went from scrambling for my next win to building something with consistent, predictable revenue. I actually felt like a business owner for the first time. And that's when I realized something. If I can do this with one of my father's centers, imagine what other tutoring business owners could do if they had the right guidance. So I left the center in April 2024, moved to Europe, and started my own business helping tutoring business owners do exactly what I did. And the results have been incredible. I've helped clients grow from $3K a month to $60,000 a month. I've worked with people who are full-time students in medical school, people with zero business experience at all, and they've all been able to build successful, profitable tutoring businesses using the same principles I learned while scaling the Mathnasium Center. Because the truth is, the success that you see in your business doesn't only come from how hard you work, it comes from how smart you work. It's about positioning yourself correctly, and it's about having someone who's actually done it before to guide you. You might be thinking that this all sounds great, but there's a decent chance you're in the same shoes that I was when I started. You're doing everything yourself. You're not making enough money. You're burnt out. The good news is that I've created a free training that goes over everything you need to do to start your tutoring business. I'll leave the link to that in the description below. It's a no-brainer if you're serious about taking your business to the next level. Lesson 1, stop being a commodity. The first and most important lesson I learned was to stop competing on price. When I started at the center, we were competing on price with every other tutoring center in the area. We were a commodity. There was nothing that made us stand out. And because we were a commodity, we had to compete on price. So I made a decision. We were going to stop competing on price and start competing on value. And I charged a premium price for it. When you're selling results, people are willing to pay a lot more. Parents aren't comparing you to the other tutoring businesses charging $30 to $50 an hour. They're comparing you to the alternative, that their kid fails the state exam or doesn't get into the university of their dreams. And suddenly, $2,000 or $3,000 offer doesn't seem expensive at all. It seems like a bargain. This shift alone changed everything. It changed how we marketed. It changed who we attracted. It changed our margins. It changed our entire business. And it's the foundation of everything else I built. Lesson 2, build the entire ecosystem. You need to build a complete marketing and sales ecosystem. This was huge for me because I realized that I was thinking about the business wrong. I thought we just needed a website, or I thought we just needed ads, or I thought we just needed a good social media presence. But the truth is, none of those things work in isolation. You need all of them working together. Here's what I mean by ecosystem. You need a way to capture their attention and build trust. That's your landing page, your video sales letter, your email sequences. You need a way to qualify them and move them towards your sale. That's your follow-up system, your nurture sequences, your CRM. You need a way to close them and onboard them. That's your sales process, your closing framework, and your onboarding sequence. And you need a way to deliver results and keep them as long-term clients. That's your tutoring, your communication, your customer success. When every piece is working together, that's when the magic happens. That's when you go from inconsistent revenue to predictable revenue. That's when you go from struggling to scaling effortlessly. At the Mathnasium Center, every single piece was working towards the same goal, enrolling students and delivering results. That's what separates the tutoring businesses that scale to 6 and 7 figures from the ones that stay stuck at 3 to 5K a month. Lesson 3, you're most likely the bottleneck. You are probably the bottleneck in your own business. When I started at the center, I was doing everything. I was managing the center. I was handling the sales meeting. I was managing the tutors. I was handling the admin. I was running the marketing. I was the business. And because I was the business couldn't grow beyond what I could personally do. I set up automations and systems so I didn't have to manually do everything. And suddenly, the business could grow without me being involved in every single task. I went from being a tutor to being a business owner. And that's the shift that allowed me to scale from $18K to $32,000 a month. Because here's the truth. If you want to build a real business, you can't do it all by yourself. You have to be willing to let software handle things. You have to be willing to let go of control and trust your team to execute. And you need to buy back your time with money. That's what separates the self-employed tutors from the actual business owners. And if you're serious about building a real tutoring business, that's the mindset shift that you need to make. You just heard my story, and now you know the key lessons that allowed me to transform that Mathnasium Center and my life. If you're ready to take the next step and get tactical and learn to set up a high-converting Facebook ad strategy for your own tutoring business, click this video right here. It walks you through the entire process step by step. I'll see you over there.